Hello, this is a re-recording of the information meeting held on May 19th regarding the CYSN RFPs. We had some technical difficulties with the recording that made it impossible for us to share that version. However, I do need to be explicit that the content being shared here today is identical to the content shared on May 19th, except for this opening statement about the technical difficulties. And with that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Kathy, to set us off.
Thanks, Andy. Good afternoon. This is the information meeting for the Ministry of Children and Family Development, Children and Youth with Support Needs Request for Proposals, ON 003774 Kelowna, ON 003775 Prince Rupert, ON 003776 Terrace, and ON 003777 Smithers. As stated on BC Bid, these RFPs are issued for the Ministry of Children and Family Development by Procurement Services Branch, part of Procurement Services Division within the Ministry of Citizen Services. Before we start, please note that we are recording this information meeting and we will be posting this recording on BC Bid. If you are not comfortable with this recording, please disconnect from the call now. Presenting today are Andy Davidson, Senior Director for the Deputy Minister's Office at the Ministry of Children and Family Development, and myself, Kathy Jack, Procurement Specialist from Procurement Services Branch. We have other representatives on the line from the province, but they will not be speaking. Our agenda for today is 1. Housekeeping. 2. RFP review and how to respond. We will review each section of the RFP at a high level, as well as explain how to respond to the opportunity. 3. Next is BC Bid. What is BC Bid? How to get set up, and the fees. 4. How to submit a question. We will talk about how to send in a question and how to see answers to submitted questions. And 5. Review of key dates and forms. A reminder of the key dates for the opportunity and the forms you will need to submit. We have allocated 60 minutes for today's meeting. Housekeeping. We understand that you may have questions about this opportunity or the process. We will not be taking questions during today's meeting. However, we will talk about how to send in your questions and how to see answers to submitted questions. Participants are muted and the chat function has been disabled. We will be speaking to the RFP. However, there are 4 RFPs currently posted on BC Bid. They are identical, except for which communities they are for, and the financial information included in them. Again, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on BC Bid. Let's start our review of the RFP and how to respond. Starting with the RFP and its title page. Again, these requests for proposals are for the Ministry of Children and Family Development, Children and Youth with Support Needs. Each of the 4 RFPs are the same. They are just for different communities and local service areas, or LSAs. The title page for each RFP states the RFP title, which includes the community name and RFP number. The closing date and time of July 22nd, 2022, before 2 p.m. is a mandatory requirement. Proposals received at 2 p.m. or later on or beyond that date will not be accepted. We highly recommend that proposals are submitted a day or 2 before the closing date and time to allow for assurance that the system has received your proposal. Overview of the opportunity. This section is a brief overview of the opportunity and states which community the RFP is for. The RFP itself contains further details on the opportunity. A couple of things to note. The proponent may submit proposals for more than one LSA, but for each LSA, a separate proposal must be submitted. The province intends for the term of the contract to begin on November 1st, 2022, running for an initial 3-year term with 2 one-year options to extend. Contractors currently delivering development and goal-focused services will not be precluded from submitting a proposal. The contact person for the RFPs is Susan Reve. Any inquiries related to the RFPs must be directed in writing to the email address provided, procurement@gov.bc.ca. The cutoff for submitting questions is 2 p.m. on July 14th. Questions posed after that time may not be answered. When sending in a question, ensure you clearly mark which RFP you are referring to, using the RFP number and community your question is pertaining to. Next is the schedule of events for the RFP and contract process. Please note that although the ministry intends to follow the posted schedule, it is subject to change. Interpretation. You will want to note that capitalized words and defined terms have their meanings defined in Appendix A, Glossary of Terms. You'll want to ensure you understand their defined meanings. Closing location. Proposals will only be accepted via BC Bid. We will talk more about BC Bid in a few minutes. And disclaimer. Again, please read this information carefully. This is not a Contract A procurement. This is a procurement for health or social services. Now over to Andy to talk about Section 1.
Thank you, Kathy. This is an overview of the ministry background, the current support, current challenges, and the scope of this RFP. It talks about how the ministry is transforming the way it provides the services for children and youth with support needs and their families. The RFP is a request for proposals for the delivery of health and social services in order to procure a single legal entity, the contractor, to establish and operate one Family Connection Center, or FCC, and aggregate and deliver other consulting and outbound services as part of the Children and Youth with Support Needs, or CYSN, early implementation approach. The contractor will be expected to employ or subcontract the appropriate professional staff, use ministry-endorsed and other tools, and provide both physical and virtual space at the FCC. The services are developmental and goal-focused services that will be delivered through FCCs throughout the province. A CYSN FCC provides a range of voluntary services to children and youth with support needs from birth to their 19th birthday, and to their families through a locally tailored combination of one primary Family Connection Center, outbound services, and network of centers, offices, and virtual environments, all to be provided by the contractor. When there is a concern regarding a child or youth who may have a developmental need or disability, or may have a perceived likelihood of a developmental delay, their family may come to the ministry for support and services. There are approximately 79,000 children and youth with support needs in BC, and more than 30,000 of these children and youth access one or more CYSN program. The ministry heard through user experience and current state research on CYSN services completed in 2019 and consultations with more than 1,500 individuals and contractors that the complement of CYSN services are the right services for the ministry to be offering. However, there are significant areas the ministry has identified for improvement. The ministry has developed the CYSN service framework, see Appendix J, to better support the diverse needs of children, youth, and their families. You will want to spend time reading and understanding the whole RFP, but in particular, Section 1.5, Services Scope, in conjunction with Appendix B, Contract Form. This Section 1.5 is a high-level summary of the scope of services described more fully in the contract form, Appendix B. Appendix B is expected to be posted as an addendum to the BC bid in the coming days. The scope for these 4 RFPs is for the provision of services within each of the 4 identified local service areas, including the operation of the FCC located in designated communities within each LSA. The contractor will be responsible for the transition in and full operations to ensure service delivery within the LSA. The Family Connection Centre and network of centres will have some common features in all locations, but the province expects that the contractor will also shape each FCC and NOC according to the needs of each community and through the proposals submitted through this RFP. Each Family Connection Centre will include a physical facility in the selected community. Depending on the needs of the area, the service provider mix, and the results of the RFP process, that physical facility could be further supported by a range of other service locations and service types, including satellite offices, virtual services, community visits, and home visits. Although the contract is expected to begin on November 1st, 2022, the contractor's ability to transition in and begin to deliver the full scope of services through the FCC by February 1st, 2023 is a critical success factor of the CYSN service transformation. The transition in period commences at contract start and runs until the FCC is fully operational and the contractor is providing services to children, youth, and families. As part of the proposal, the proponent will provide a transition in plan, Appendix H, that outlines core transition in deliverables required for that transition in period. Following the transition in period and beginning no later than February 1st, 2023 and until approximately March 31st, 2023, the contractor will be expected to transition children, youth, and families into the FCC. The ministry will provide a prioritization approach to guide the transition in of caseload from both the ministry and other community service providers. Functional needs assessments will be required for many transitioning cases and will be required to be administered by the contractor in a prioritized manner as per ministry direction. The contractor will be required to have the Family Connection Centre fully operational by April 1st, 2023, at which time the Family Connection Centre will be open to the public and providing the complete array of services within the LSA. Once operational, the Family Connection Centre will provide both developmental and goal-focused services to the children, youth, and families of the LSA. Developmental services include education and guidance, needs-based screening, and developmental monitoring. Goal-focused services include functional assessment, goal development, support planning, intervention and therapy, and inclusive childcare supports. A few other key points in this section include a fulsome list of the reporting requirements for the FCC and a listing of the outcome measures that will be monitored over the life of the contract. It should also be noted that the FCC operator is required to provide appropriate space for the provision of clinical mental health services within the FCC, although these services are not provided by the FCC operator directly. Please ensure you give Section 1.5 and all of its subsections a thorough reading to understand all the requirements that come along with operating a Family Connection Centre.
Thank you, Andy. Section 2, Contract. Before submitting a proposal, you will want to review Appendix B, Contract Form, and all schedules, the sample contract attached to this RFP, to ensure you can meet the terms and conditions of the contract. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal advice to review the contract. Again, it is expected that Appendix B will be posted on BC Bid in the coming days. The province intends to enter into a contract with a single contractor for each LSA in the form attached as Appendix B contract form. This may require that single contractor employ or subcontract any professional, administrative, operational, or other staff as may be required to deliver the services, and that may well be permissible in accordance with the contract terms. As mentioned, the province intends for the term of the contract to begin on November 1st, 2022, running for an initial 3-year term with 2 one-year options to extend. Questions about the contract should be considered with your own independent legal advice and may be posed along with other questions asked in the normal course to the government contact at procurement@gov.bc.ca. Section 3, Instructions to Proponents and RFP Terms and Conditions. These are the process rules of the RFP, and they contain policies, requirements, and legislation that govern the RFP process. It is essential that proponents understand these rules. Section 3.2 includes information on how to submit a proposal, the format of the proposal, and what documents are required to ensure each proposal receives full consideration. To assist evaluations, we request that proposals are consistent in their formatting. You will want to ensure your proposal matches the requested format listed here. As part of your proposal, you will include Appendix C, Proponent's Declaration Letter, Appendix D, Response Template, Appendix F, Payment Tool Template, Appendix G, Cultural Safety Plan Template, Appendix H, Transition In Template, and Appendix I, Service Plan Template. Section 3.4 talks about the inquiries process, which we will review near the end of this presentation. Ensure you review Section 3 in detail before responding to the RFP. Questions may be posed if there's any uncertainty that you cannot resolve on your own or with independent legal advice. Section 4, Requirements. Appendix D, Response Template, includes the evaluated requirements. You will complete this template as part of your response. Please note that the response guidelines are not intended to be comprehensive. You will use your own judgment in determining what information to include in your proposal that demonstrates that you meet or exceed the province's expectations. We will talk more about Appendix D in a few minutes. Section 5, Proposal Review and Evaluation. This section explains how proposals will be evaluated. All proposals will be checked for mandatory criteria stated in Section 5.1. Proposals must meet the mandatory criteria to be evaluated further. There are 5 mandatory criteria. A, the proposal must be received at the closing location before the submission deadline. B, the proposal must be in English. C, the proposal must be submitted using the submission method set out on the cover page of the RFP and in substantially accordance sections 3.2, 3.11, and 3.14. D, the proposal must identify the legal name of the single legal entity with capacity to enter into a contract, if any, in Appendix C, Proponent Declaration Letter. And E, the proposal must include a substantially completed transition in plan, service plan, cultural safety plan, and payment tool. Section 5.2 talks to the weighted criteria, or the breakdown of points allocated to each of the evaluated sections. Please refer to the table in the RFP to understand how the points are broken down. Section 5.4 includes information about reference checks. Now let's move on to the appendices. Appendix A, Glossary of Terms. These definitions help us have a shared understanding of what certain words and terms mean. You will see these as capitalized throughout the RFP. Appendix B, Contract Form. The successful proponent will be expected to enter into a contract with the province on substantially the same terms and conditions of Appendix B. Again, before submitting a proposal, you will want to review Appendix B and all schedules to ensure you can meet the terms and conditions of the contract. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal advice to review the contract. Appendix C, Proponent's Declaration Letter. This appendix will be included as part of your proposal. It states that by submitting a proposal, a proponent agrees to all the terms and conditions of the RFP. It also includes a Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, or FOIPA, collection notice. If you have any questions about FOIPA, please direct them to the named contact on the form. Back to you, Andy.
Thanks, Kathy. Appendix D, Response Template. You will fill out Appendix D, Response Template, as part of your response to the RFP. You should take extraordinary care to ensure that responses on each of the evaluated criteria in Appendix D incorporate and are substantiated by the detailed plans which must also be completed, and which are supplied in Appendices F, G, H, and I, the Payment Tool, Cultural Safety Plan, Transition In Plan, and Service Plan. You will notice that there are various suggested word counts in the responses. Please keep your responses concise, and bulleted responses are acceptable. The table fields in the document for your responses expand as text is entered. Each response guideline states what information should be included in the response. When filling out each item in the response template, the key will be to respond to the response guidelines, which describe the ministry's expectations and preferences as may be applicable, and in each case identify what's desired of proponents' responses. The response guidelines are not intended to be comprehensive. You should use your own judgment in determining what information to include in your proposal that demonstrates that you meet or exceed the province's expectations. Appendix E, the Payment Tool Guide. The Payment Tool Guide contains the information you will need to fill out Appendix F, the Payment Tool Template. You will want to have a good understanding of the Appendix E's Payment Tool Guide of how to fill out the payment tool at Appendix F before you start. The payment tool is designed to provide a standardized approach to supporting service providers and ministry staff in determining and reviewing the funding required to operate the CYSN early implementation sites. The guide provides the instructions, explanations, and tips to help you populate the payment tool and helps the ministry review and make decisions around the information you provide. The guide takes you through each tab of the payment tool template and what information you will provide. The guide also contains the following appendices. Appendix A includes a description of typical FCC positions and what their key duties and responsibilities are, as well as preferred qualifications. Appendix B is a description of program costs. Appendix C is a description of facility costs. Appendix D is a description of administrative costs. And Appendix E includes a description of the positions related to Inclusive Child Care Supports Program. Again, please read the guide thoroughly before filling in the payment tool template. Appendix F, the payment tool template. You will complete Appendix F, the payment tool template, as part of your response to the RFP. It will be evaluated in conjunction with Appendix D, the response guidelines. Please ensure you have read and understood the guide before filling out the template. The workbook contains drop-down menus, and only those cells that require information can be edited. Based on the information you enter, other areas of the workbook will populate automatically. For example, the summary sheet will populate based on the information entered in the other tabs. Your payment tool will be evaluated for its completeness and reasonableness in relation to the service model you are proposing. For example, a model based on extensive outbound services in a dispersed geography should have correspondingly significant travel costs built in. It is those clear relationships between the proposed service approach and the manner in which the available contract funding is allocated that the ministry is looking for in regards to reasonableness. Appendix G, Cultural Safety Plan Template. You will fill out Appendix G, the Cultural Safety Plan Template, as part of your response to the RFP. It will be evaluated in conjunction with Appendix D, Response Guidelines. So, for example, your score on staffing approach will take into account the content in the response template and in the Cultural Safety Plan section on staffing. You will need to fill out both tables, the Indigenous Cultural Safety and Anti-Racism. In each table, you will describe your current strengths and foundations, your planned approach, and measurement of progress to each of the bullet points described in the domain column. You will leave the scoring column blank. The intent of this template is to capture a clear picture of your organization's relationships, practices, policies, and procedures that support Indigenous cultural safety and anti-racism. Like the response guidelines, the bulleted points are not intended to be comprehensive. You will use your own judgment in determining what information to include. Appendix H, Transition In Template. You will fill out Appendix H, the Transition In Template, as part of your response to the RFP. It will be evaluated in conjunction with Appendix D, Response Guidelines. You will populate columns A, B, and C, then adjust the timelines for each task in the month and week columns to align to the expected timing of the activity. You may add additional lines if required. Please provide sufficient detail in the plan that the evaluation committee can see clearly how you intend to move from your current starting point to full operational readiness. The ability of your organization to meet the expected timelines to open the Family Connection Center and any network of centers in your proposal is a key success factor for the ministry, and as such, your plans will be closely scrutinized. The plans will also form a touchstone for initial contract stewardship post-contract signing and during the transition-in period. Appendix I, Service Plan Template. You will fill out Appendix I, the Service Plan Template, as part of your response to the RFP. It will be evaluated in conjunction with Appendix D, Response Guidelines. You will provide a response to the requested information. You will use your own judgment in determining what information to include. As with the Transition-In Plan, the Service Plan will underpin the ongoing contract stewardship process. This will be a living document that is updated annually at minimum and will support the relationship and focus the contract governance process outlined in the contract. Appendix J, CYSN Service Framework. The Children and Youth with Support Needs Service Framework document provides information on the service framework and service descriptions to assist you in understanding the model. It describes the intention of the new model of service delivery and provides an overview of how the Family Connection Centers fit within the evolving suite of CYSN services. This document includes more information on the Family Connection Centers, the service and staffing expectations, and contract requirements. It also includes more information on ministry-delivered disability and provincial services, the service and staffing expectations, and quality assurance requirements. Appendix K, Service Delivery Areas and Local Service Areas. This map shows MCFD service delivery areas and local service areas, LSAs. Please ensure you understand the geography you are applying to serve, as all communities and their children, youth, and families are expected to be served through the service model you are proposing in your submission. Appendix L, Current Service Providers. The appendix is a list of current service providers for each service delivery area. This list is intended to support you in understanding the current service environment and to aid in developing any relationships needed to meet the needs of the community where more than one agency or provider may be needed to fulsomely do so. Appendix M, Community Profile. Linked to Appendix K, the Community Profile includes information on geographic boundaries of the local service area, demographic information, including the estimated number of children and youth that could require support within the LSA, Indigenous community information, and the number of organizations currently delivering CYSN services in each LSA. These documents are intended to provide a baseline of common information on the communities to be served, to be built upon in your responses in the response template. Appendix N, Useful Links. Appendix N provides links to BC government websites for trauma-informed practices, the Aboriginal Policy and Practice Framework, and IMIT policies. These are important ministry materials for you to understand and incorporate as needed into your responses. They are useful frameworks to inform your operational policies and approaches. This concludes our review of the RFP and its appendices. To reiterate, your response to the RFP will include the following 6 documents: Appendix C, Proponent's Declaration Letter, Appendix D, response template, Appendix F, payment tool template, Appendix G, cultural safety plan, Appendix H, transition in plan, and Appendix I, service plan, all filled out in their entirety. Over to you, Kathy.
Thanks, Andy. BC bid. When you are ready to submit your proposal, it will be submitted via an e-bid on BC bid. Except as may be provided by section 3.15, this is the only way to submit a proposal. We will refer you to the BC bid website at www.bcbid.gov.bc.ca for more information about BC bid itself. If you do not yet have an e-bidding account, please do not wait until the closing date to create an account. Delays may occur that could result in the e-bid account not being set up in time to submit your proposal. E-bidding is a subscription service that costs $150 annually, but you may use your account as many times as you wish in that year. You can also receive notifications from BC bid, including any updates to these opportunities, for an additional $100 per year. Again, we suggest you set up your BC bid account well in advance of the closing date and that you submit your proposal 1 or 2 days in advance of the closing. The closing date and time is a mandatory requirement. Proposals cannot be accepted after this. Questions. You may have questions about the opportunity. Any inquiries related to the RFP may only be directed in writing to the government contact, Susan Rivet at procurement@gov.bc.ca. When sending in a question, ensure you clearly mark which RFP you are referring to using the RFP number and community your question is pertaining to. For example, if your question is related to the Kelowna RFP, please state ON 003774 CYSN Kelowna in your email. Information obtained from any other source is not official and should not be relied upon. Inquiries and any responses providing new information will be recorded and posted to BC bid or otherwise distributed to prospective proponents. The province may choose in its sole discretion not to respond in whole or in part, or reformulate questions in whole or in part. The province may in its sole discretion choose whether to post any such questions as reformulated, if reformulated, and responses to BC bid, or otherwise distribute to eligible proponents. The RFP states that the cutoff for questions will be 2 p.m. on July 14th, 2022. Questions received after this time may not be answered. Any responses to questions will be posted on BC bid. If you do not sign up to receive notifications, you will need to manually check BC bid for any updates. A reminder of the key dates and response forms that will need to be filled out for a complete response. The cutoff for inquiries related to the RFP is 2 p.m. on July 14th. Please get your questions in as soon as possible. The closing date and time. Proposals must be received before 2 p.m. on July 22nd, 2022 via BC bid. We suggest you submit your proposal a day or two before the closing and have your BC bid e-bidding account set up well in advance. Again, your proposal will include the following 6 documents: Appendix C, Proponent's Declaration Letter; Appendix D, Response Template; Appendix F, Payment Tool Template; Appendix G, Cultural Safety Plan; Appendix H, Transition In Plan; and Appendix I, Service Plan. Thank you all for attending today's information meeting. A recording of this presentation will be posted on BC bid for reference. It is our intent to post the recording as an addendum by end of day, May 24th. Thank you.